Hey, John, I love bond ladders and I like them more than bond funds most of the time. That's what we're going to talk about today. 3 reasons why I like bond ladders on Friends Talk Financial Planning. Hi, I'm Bridget Sullivan Mermel, and I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shearer. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. And before we jump into why bond ladders can be more appealing than bond funds, I just want to remind everybody, hit that subscribe button. Help other people find this content on YouTube. And with that, I'm looking forward to digging in on the idea. I certainly like bond ladders more than bond funds as well, but interested in hearing your reasons. You do a little more research on this, Bridget, and have a little more well thought out thought process. I'm interested in hearing what you have, like what are the key talking points or the things that you think about when it comes to building up a bond ladder, so a series of individual bonds versus buying a bond mutual fund.
Well, I look at the function of the safe part of your portfolio. Okay. So the function of that is not to make tons of money. The function of the stock part of your portfolio is to make a lot of money. Okay. The function of the bond part of your portfolio is to be there when you need it. Okay. And so that's one of the reasons why I like bond ladders, is because it guarantees cash flow if you do it right. By doing it right, I mean use US Treasury strips that mature at different times, generally 5 to 10, 15 years. And we start with 5 to 10. And then you know that the US government is going to pay you in that time, and they're going to, and you have the bond to prove it in your account. What are your thoughts here? I'm sure you'll have more color on this.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Just on a tech, I'll start with a technical side, then move bigger picture. But treasury strips, we certainly treasuries for shorter term things, CDs fit in my
Yeah.
view on that. We'll use some agencies like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, things that are explicitly backed by the government. I think we've got some Tennessee Valley Authority bonds that we have in the portfolio, but things that are backed by the government explicitly for that safety reason, right? The U.S. government can print money, right? So that's that security side, FDIC insured on the bonds that are on the CDs, I should say, that sort of thing. So maybe a little bit of a technical difference, but you can get higher returns generally speaking using corporate bonds or other bonds from, I don't know, IBM or Apple or those sort of places. But that guarantee part of things with the federally protected bonds is really important. And you had mentioned it, earlier that, hey, we look for returns in the stocks, and then the
Right.
bond side of things is, and one of the phrases I use is that in our bond side of things, the goal, or especially when we're talking about bond ladder for income, is return of our money, not return on our money. Right?
Right.
I mean, we want to get good interest rates. I mean, sure, but
Sure.
that's not the goal of that. And how I describe it is sort of like in relationship to having a garden or being a farmer, right? When you grow crops, that's where you make money. That to me is the stocks. And then, when you have your good crops, you can some of those things and put them in your pantry for use in the future, right? And that's where that bond idea comes in. That's the security in the bond ladder, is that, at some point we're going to have a drought or a flood or whatever out in our farm fields, out in our gardens, and those things that we canned are there, they're not growing, right? How are your pickles growing in your pantry? Like, that's a stupid question, right? Everybody knows that. But we apply that same thing. It's not, how is my applesauce growing? It's, is my applesauce there when I need to eat it? Is it there when I need it? Right? That thought process really resonates with me, and that's the approach that I take. So that guaranteed side of things, the security part, and it's not from a bond fund standpoint that it's necessarily super high risk or things. Like, we can get a conservative one, but it doesn't have that level of guarantee. And I'll tell you, I've been through, I started my business back when, right after 9/11 and the tech bubble burst in 2001, and being through the credit crisis and, a few other things. It's most of the time you look at that bond ladder and you go, oh man, those returns are no good. But when things go bad and we've got that pantry stocked full of, pickles and applesauce, man, is that a great resource and a great feeling. So that's how I look at that side, that security is just really critical, and you don't get it in the bond mutual fund.
So you like the 15 years of pickles.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what you
right.
want. I
Right.
want 15 years worth of pickles so that I know if there's a big flood, I got my pickles. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, it totally makes a lot of sense. And I think when people are retiring, if you're 70 and the stock market tanks and you see that, wait, I've got my cash guaranteed for the next 15 years, that gives people a lot of peace of mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what they can see it, and it's peace of mind. I know I've got cash coming in.
And for me, Bridget, it's that those are like two branches of the same things. We've got this guarantee stuff, right? The
Yeah,
government can literally print money, right? And it's
right,
um and then there's also, and you kind of hinted towards that psychological side, that it gives you a peace of mind.
right,
And one of the things that I value from the bond ladder side of things is that we'll do, I call it liability matching. It's kind of like a pension plan would do, or an insurance company. Hey, we know we have to pay out this much, so we're going to buy a bond that matches up to this. And
right.
that's what we do. And I think you do the same for
Yeah,
cash flow in retirement. Hey, I need to spend 100,000. Let's have a bond mature so there's $100,000 guaranteed for 1 year and 2 years and 3 years out. And it's kind of like, I don't know, when I was a kid, maybe you were the same, where you'd save money in envelopes for different things, or when I was at least younger, there's my vacation money in this envelope, and there's my Christmas money in that envelope, and right. And it's no different than if I had that sitting in my checking account, right? If I had $1,000 for those things, it doesn't matter if it's in the checking account or in my little envelopes. But when I can look in that envelope and go, oh, there's my $300 I've got for buying Christmas gifts, the peace of mind knowing it was in that little envelope, right? And that's what I find for clients and for me as well.
right,
When we can look and go, oh geez, Bridget, you need to have $75,000 a year from your portfolio, and there it is. Here's these CDs, here's these bonds that mature in the next 5, 10, 15 years. It's just like, oh, yeah, okay,
right.
that's exactly where it's coming from. Even if we could do a similar thing with the bond mutual fund, it's not in those envelopes that gives that peace of mind.
Right, exactly. It's not guaranteed cash flow. The other thing is that to get a little bit more technical, we look at, okay, how much cash do you need? And then are you going to be getting something like Social Security or a pension?
Right.
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 And so we kind of plan it out like, oh, you're going to think you're going to take Social Security at this age or this age. And so there's some guesswork and it's not perfect. Right. And that's
Yeah.
okay. So that's the other thing about it is there's some guesswork. It's not perfectly accurate. And pro tip, we don't always take the money from the bond that's matured and have that for cash, because sometimes we're rebalancing the portfolio and it just kind of depends on how that's working at the time. So we want to make sure that our rungs are there, but exactly how the cash flow is working. Sometimes we're selling stocks, we use that. And then we
Yeah.
use the money from the bond ladder to just buy more rungs. So it just depends
Yep.
on when you're balancing. It's a little bit more complicated than maybe what we're describing, but I feel like our viewers can handle it. It's fine. It's
Yep.
not that bad. Our third thing, so we've got guarantee, we've got peace of mind, and our third thing is kind of arcane, and I don't think anybody's thinking about this, but we think you should, is deflation protection. So it's saying that if prices start going down, then you're going to get this money. So then you're going to be looking, whenever there's a downturn, that's when, so people are always talking about it after there's a big downturn, and when there's like a crisis like they had in Japan, where deflation is hard and it takes a long time to get out of, just like the US's experience in during the Depression. It's just hard to get out of deflation. And the people that manage the economies do their best, but it's not easy to get out of it. So what's the chance of deflation? Not that big. I don't think it's that big. But again, if there's a psychological risk of it and people really don't want to see it, if it's happening, you're going to be really happy with the bond ladder. There's all kinds of things that we do. We buy insurance. Why is that? Well, because there's all these risks out there. So deflation, even though it may seem like it's not that big of a risk, you don't want to wait around until it happens. And this is really a third benefit. I wouldn't say it's the first benefit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Most of our conversations, right, what we hear and think and feel is about inflation and how are
Right.
prices going up. But you hit it on the head, right? When prices go down, it seems like a good thing, but the economic implications of that, it's actually way more dangerous. And having a
Right.
bond ladder, we saw just in a sort of a microcosm as interest rates had fallen over the past couple of years, bond values shot up. Right. So if you had some individual bonds, if you had a bond ladder and you saw that, that's sort of the idea is when things go down and rates go down, the value of the bonds that you currently owns goes up. And it's, like I said, too complicated to get into all the details, but that is a benefit of having a bond ladder, individual bonds versus a bond fund.
And it's hard to protect yourself against deflation. That's the
Yep.
other thing. So it's a great way to, it's a way to do it. So, the other is just having money in savings accounts. So it seems like that's a great way to wrap it up. This is our latest episode on bond ladders versus bond funds. Oh, one of the things before we end is that you can make more with bond funds.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's a potential to get higher returns, right? But it's,
Yeah. And so, hey, if that's your number one thing, go for that. But we suggest making money in stocks and
make money in stocks. That's right.
Yeah. But letting your bonds be safe. So I'm Bridget Sullivan-Mermel. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shear. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. Both Bridget and I are taking on new clients, so we'd love to hear from you. But if you like what you hear on our show and would like to find an advisor in your area that thinks similarly to us, we're both members of the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners, and you can find an advisor near you at acplanners.org.
And don't forget to subscribe.